There was a moment from which Kangiwe awakened in a place known only as the Chamber of Choices. It was a place that existed somewhere between reality and imagination, a place where the creator was not separate from creation, where time did not move, and the only thing that flowed was consciousness itself, stretching like an endless shadow through a silent, lightless world. In that strange reality, a man stood before him. He was ancient, ancient in a way that did not belong to years, but to something deeper, the kind of age that seemed older than memory itself. And though the man standing there had a face that he had never seen before, something about him felt unsettlingly familiar, as if he knew him more deeply than he knew himself. The ancient man held two rocks in his hands. Kangiwe looked at the man carefully, unease rising in his chest. "You, I know you," he said slowly. But I don't know where I know you from," he continued. "You seem surprised, son of Bhukula," said the old man with glowing green eyes. "Who are you?" asked Kangiwe. "To ask that question is to ask it of yourself. Can a man truly know who he is when he does not even know the ground upon which he has walked for centuries?" responded the ancient man. "I have searched for that answer my entire life. I asked it in many ways, searched for it in many languages, and yet it escapes me," said Kangiwe. The ancient man smiled and slowly lifted his hands, revealing the two stones resting in his palms. "Before you lies a choice," he said quietly. "A choice that will decide who you are, who you have been, and who you will always be." "What kind of choice carries such a burden?" asked Kangiwe. "It already feels heavy and you have not even spoken it," he continued. "With me are two rocks. You are to choose one," said the old man. "A rock?" asked Kangiwe. "Yes, son of Bhukula. These rocks will decide your fate in the time that has passed and the time that is yet to come," answered the old man. "How?" questioned Kangiwe. "Do you remember, son of Bhukula, your people, your village, your father?" Then the memories long buried beneath years of life and success began to rise from the darkness. Kangiwe remembered where he had come from, Luphahleni, the village of his birth. His people had once been happy. They had lived without fear, believing there was no danger they could not face together. Until the day the ships came. That was the day everything changed. The ships came from the sea with chains, they came with whips, and they came with guns. They took the girl child to sail beyond the seas. They took the boy child to work the fields of men from distant lands. They took the mothers to raise the children of strangers. They took the fathers to serve masters with no hearts. Kangiwe could still hear the screams, the wailing, the shock, the brutality that had fallen upon Luphahleni like a storm. His father had fought, but courage was no match for the weapons the strangers carried. They took him, they took his mother, they bound them like animals and marched them for miles until they reached the great ships waiting on the coast. Inside those ships, people were packed together in darkness, so tight that breathing itself became a struggle. The horrors he witnessed there could never be truly spoken. Only tears could tell that story. His mother grew weaker each day of the journey. He watched her fade slowly like a dying flame, and by the time they crossed the sea, he was an orphan. For many years, he lived beneath the tyranny of slavery, but one day the chains broke. He became a free man. By fortune, he inherited a piece of land. From that land, he built a life that grew into wealth, a life that allowed him to help many who had once suffered as he had suffered. His children grew wise and strong. Their success became greater than anything he had ever imagined possible. Yet, despite all the triumphs of his life, there was always one memory that remained like a wound that never fully healed: the ships. Tears started to fill Kangiwe's eyes as he relived the past. "Now you understand why you have been called here," said the old man. Then Kangiwe's eyes slowly moved to the two stones resting in the hands of the ancient man, and the old man finally spoke the words that would change everything. "The pain, it can be taken away. If you pick the rock in my right hand, son of Bhukula, the ships will never come to your village. You will never be taken from your home. You will grow old and die a free man in Luphahleni. You will live a life that remains in the shadows of the unknown." Then the ancient man lifted the other rock. But if you choose the rock in my left hand, everything will happen exactly as it did. The ships will come, you will be taken, you will suffer, you will lose everything you love, but that suffering will forge you. And one day you will rise from nothing. You will become the man you are now, the man standing before me. Kangiwe suddenly felt a quiet fear rise in his chest. The man before him did not look like a stranger. He looked like a future that had already happened. If I choose the right stone, my people will be saved from slavery, asked Kangiwe. Yes, answered the old man. But if I choose the right stone and the ships never come, then how do I end up here? Asked Kangiwe. You do not, answered the old man, staring him dead in the eye. So this moment disappears? Asked Kangiwe. Yes, replied the old man. And what will be of the powerful man I became? Asked Kangiwe. He will never exist, answered the ancient being. Kangiwe stared at both stones and then suddenly he laughed. I see the trick, said Kangiwe. The ancient man tilted his head. There is no trick, said the ancient man. Oh, there is. You are not asking me to choose between two futures. You are asking me to choose between two versions of myself, responded Kangiwe. Whatever perception you hold, son of Bhukula, the responsibility remains. You must decide, or you and I will stand here for eternity, said the ancient being. With no choice, Kangiwe closed his eyes, and after a long moment, he reached forward to pick one of the rocks. But before his hand touched the stone, the being spoke again. You should know something. This is not the first time you have stood here, said the ancient man. Kangiwe was surprised. He froze for a moment, then slowly looked up to the glowing green eyes of the ancient being. What do you mean? Asked Kangiwe. The being turned and pointed behind him. Kangiwe followed the gesture, and his blood turned cold when he saw one phrase written on the rocky ground over and over again, 1,000 times. I chose the left, said Kangiwe, whispering the words on the ground. How many times have I made this decision? Continued Kangiwe. Enough times to know which stone you will take. Enough times for the sea to remember your choice, said the ancient man. Why do I keep choosing the same one? Asked Kangiwe. The being looked at him with a strange sadness. Because the man who stands here cannot exist without the suffering that created him, replied the old man. Then that means this is not a choice, said Kangiwe, clenching his fists. The being said nothing. The wind began to rise around them. Whilst waiting for an answer, Kangiwe looked closer at the figure standing before him. Something felt familiar. The posture, the voice, the scars on the hands. Slowly, fear crept into his chest. Who are you? Asked Kangiwe. The being finally smiled. Not a cruel smile, a tired one. Then the ancient being opened both hands, and the stones vanished, and the illusion of age began to fade. The old face straightened, the wrinkles disappeared, the glowing eyes dimmed into human ones. Kangiwe stumbled back, fear overcoming him after realizing that standing before him was now himself, just older, much older. His voice came out as a whisper. No! The older version nodded. Yes. Kangiwe shook his head in disbelief. Why are you doing this? He asked. The older man looked out toward the invisible ocean. Ships were already approaching Lupahleni. Because one day you will stand where I stand now, said the old man. You mean after I choose, I become you, said Kangiwe. Yes, nodded the old man. And then I must come back here, asked Kangiwe. Yes, nodded the old man. To give the same choice to myself, said Kangiwe. Yes, answered the old man. But why? Asked Kangiwe. The older version looked directly into his eyes and said the most terrifying thing yet. Because one day I tried to stop the ships. The old man paused. And what happened? Asked a frozen Kangiwe. The world broke. The older man answered quietly. Your suffering was not an accident. It is the foundation of the man you become. If the ships never come, you never become strong enough to protect everything that comes after. Kangiwe looked again at the stones. His hands trembled. So you came back to make sure I choose the suffering? Asked Kangiwe. The older man nodded slowly. Yes, I came back to make sure we survive." Silence fell between them. Finally, Khangiwe asked the question that mattered most. "When does it end?" The older man looked out toward the horizon, where the ships were already sailing toward the village, and he answered softly, "The day you are strong enough to forgive the ships." The end.